Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today is part three of day one of the ongoing coverage between Russia and Ukraine and their ongoing, which we could now call a war as opposed to a conflict. Operations continue around Ukraine, and obviously, this is the first day of a very large scale conflict between two industrial nations. And as with any conflict that occurs between two nation states such as Ukraine and Russia, and especially this early in the conflict, and as the conflict continues to resolve itself, we are going to see setbacks, and we are going to see successes on both sides of the equation, meaning we are going to see the Russians uh, come into contact with the Ukrainians, and we are going to see them have battlefield defeats. We are also going to see the Russians have battlefield successes, as with the Ukrainians. So things are going to kind of ebb and flow, especially earlier in the conflict, as we are right now. So right now, I wanted to have a look at one area of operations that I felt was, again, a very, very high risk, high reward operation, and that is specifically here at the Antonov Air Base, just to the north of the town of Hostomel. And as we had talked about in a previous video, Russian VDV formations, possibly Spetsnaz units, landed at the airbase, seized control of the airbase after defeating a Ukrainian element that was uh, uh, deployed there to protect the airbase. We had visual confirmation that the Russians had seized control of the airbase. There was actually a CNN reporter on the scene recording elements of these Russian airborne troops taking control of the airbase in certain areas around the airbase as well. We have since learned there has been a counterattack by the Ukrainian military. And initial reports, especially those of the Ukrainian military, indicate that they have in fact destroyed, quote unquote, destroyed the Russian airborne element that was deployed to the base. So again, high risk, high reward operation that at this point may have ended in a significant setback for the Russians, if in fact the Ukrainians were able to destroy that element sent to seize control of that airbase. Again, as I talked about, if the Russians were going to do this sort of operation this close to Kyiv, those forces in the north were going to need to make a fairly rapid advance down in order to meet up with these Russian paratroopers that had entered the airbase. Because again, being this close to this many assets of the Ukrainian military, the Ukrainians were able to call in heavy armored formations along with self-propelled artillery, and may have been able to reduce that unit sent to the Antonov Air Base. But again, that is one example of a setback that we are currently seeing right now and within the scope of this conflict. Another area that is right now proving to be somewhat of a hindrance for the Russian forces is in Sumy. The Russian forces deployed they crossed the border, the Russian-Ukrainian border, and apparently they were able to actually enter Sumy without much of a fight. But then, not long after taking Sumy or entering Sumy and operating in the environments of Sumy, a Ukrainian National Guard and military unit engaged those forces in some urban combat, and it would appear that either the fighting The Russians have backed away on the outskirts of Sumy, or that fighting continues as we speak. So I've heard that fighting continues, and I also heard the Russians may have backed out of the town at this point. Furthermore, in the attack within the vicinity of Kharkov, the Russians are meeting stifling resistance within the vicinity of Kharkov. We know that the Ukrainians have deployed Javelin anti-tank guided weapon systems within the vicinity of Kharkov, and the Russians have indeed apparently taken some casualties maneuvering around Kharkov. So again, this is another area in which the Russian advance seems to be slowing near these two cities, both Sumy and Kharkov. Further to the south, in the eastern separatist areas, we continue to see Russian forces shell the forward deployed lines of the Ukrainian forces. We've seen a move on Mariupol. We understand that Mariupol is still in the possession of the Ukrainian military, and again, fighting continues in all along the main frontal zone with the Eastern Separatists and obviously the Russian forces that are now also supporting them. We also understand that to the north, Russians are trying to maneuver, quite possibly to outflank the Ukrainian forces that are deployed against the Eastern Separatist and the Russian military that is also deployed in that area. Now, one of the biggest successful operations of the war has been coming out of the Crimea. We have seen a fairly rapid advance by the Russian military moving out of the Crimea, and we now understand they have in fact crossed the Dnieper River. We have visual confirmation of a Russian tank battalion moving over this bridge, over the Dnieper River, while being engaged by what looks to be quite possibly mortar fire while they cross that bridge and have actually again crossed the Dnieper River. One big issue for the Russian forces that are operating just north of the Crimea is it's very flat land with very little foliage. I'll try to pull up a picture here where everybody can kind of see exactly what I'm referring to. And let's see what's a good shot here where everybody can kind of see exactly what I'm talking about. Let's see what this looks like. And this should give you a kind of a good idea of, and it may be summer, but again, very, very flat open land, and this is just ideal for large-scale mechanized operations. And obviously, this hedge of trees is probably, or isn't probably, all that foliage is now gone. So they have fairly good lines of sight as they maneuver across these areas. So that is one reason why the Russians are able to, or have been able to, maneuver as they have been, especially coming out of the Crimea. So again, that is a fairly rapid advance on day one of this operation, coming out of the Crimea and then being able to secure that bridgehead across the Dnieper River, and then making their way across the Dnieper River. I am surprised that the Ukrainians did not blow the bridge. If the Russians possess this bridge now and it has not been blown, this is going to be a significant setback for the Ukrainians as the Russians continue to deploy forces in the southern Ukraine. Another operation took place. This is probably going to be known as the Snake Island Massacre. And here on Snake Island, the Russians engaged what is believed to be around 13 border troops of the Ukrainian Defense Forces, and all 13 of those personnel were reportedly killed on Snake Island, and the Russians control this small island as we speak. But again, day one of this operation, and right now, it would appear that the Ukrainian army is obviously playing up some of the stifling resistance that it is providing against the Russian forces. We have seen the Russian forces be stifled and slowed in many of the areas that it is attempting to try and operate. I would say this operation over here near the Antonov field was a very bold operation with I would say a high probability that it would not have been a successful operation. As a military commander, if I was the war fighter in charge of said operation, I'm probably not conducting said operation. Just too risky. And quite possibly some very high-end elite troops may have lost their lives or captured and or defeated within the vicinity of the Antonov field. At the same time, as I talked about in my some of my previous videos, leading to the leading to the conflict, that the Russians would have some tough times in these areas, especially near Chernobyl and along the Belarusian border. And again, you have to understand the Russians have not been operating and training in Belarus for an extended period of time. They've been there really probably the better part of a month. Doing some training in other parts of Belarus, and they've been here probably again just about 4 weeks, prepping for said operation. So not a great deal of time to prepare for what they're trying to do right now. And again, I'll try to kind of show you what exactly I'm talking about in terms of what some of this territory, in terms of terrain, actually looks like if you are a Russian army unit trying to operate. So again, as you can see here, massive forests. You have areas of, or you have urban areas, and then very dense forests that are along the Belarusian-Ukrainian border. So this is going to be tough as armored units try and maneuver through these areas. They're going to be attacked and ambushed with by Ukrainian forces with those British in-laws that were provided by the British Armed Forces. Obviously, javelins are probably going to be deployed, although the engagement ranges are probably, I would say, in some areas are a little bit too close for the javelins to be relatively effective, because some of these engagements are going to be just a few dozen meters in some cases. I believe this is probably a good shot to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, imagine if you're a Russian unit maneuvering through these forested areas. Obviously a little different because of the winter, but nonetheless they're going to be engaged at some extremely close range by Ukrainian anti-tank teams operating in these areas. And I think that's exactly what we're currently seeing. But again, day one of said war conflict, and I anticipate at least, that this is going to be a lengthy conflict. I do not believe that the Russians are going to seize Kiev in 72 hours, especially if we find out that there was a significant setback near the Antonov airport. I believe that these forces moving down the west side of the Dnieper and the east side of the Dnieper, it's going to be a tough road to Kiev. And then when they get to Kiev, there could be some really nasty fighting to try and get into Kiev, and especially in some of the suburbs leading into Kiev as well. This is not going to be, at least I believe, a 72-hour operation where where we see the Russians in the center of Kiev in 72 hours. I don't buy it, and I think that's a miscalculation by General Milley, who originally stated that. But we'll see what happens. I could be wrong. But that's kind of where we stand at the end of day one. Day two is coming up here quick, and of course we will absolutely continue our coverage on what is occurring. Hope everyone has a pleasant evening, and we'll see you soon.